Good morning. In this class today, we will discuss the chapter number 3, Ruling the Countryside. We will discuss the question answers of the remaining part of this chapter. As you might be aware that we have already discussed the question answers for the first half of the chapter, and now we'll discuss the question answers for the remaining half of this chapter. These question answers will also cover the question answers given at the back of your chapter, and it will also consist of some of extra questions. All these questions are to be written in your history notebooks. So we'll start from page number 31, chapter number 3, Ruling the Countryside. The first question, which will be there for you in this page, you will write the question as why was there a demand for Indian indigo? This would be your question. Why was there a demand for Indian indigo? And for that, we will start from here. The first point would be the indigo plant grows primarily in the tropics. By the 13th century, Indian indigo was being used by cloth manufacturers in Italy, France, Britain to dye cloth. This would be the introduction to your answer. That will be the point number 1. For point number 2, we will go to the second paragraph. Only small amounts of Indian indigo reached the European market and its price was very high. This would be your point number 2. So these will be the first and second points of your question. Now for the third point, we will go to the next paragraph. In this paragraph, we will start from the French began cultivating indigo in the Saint Dominic in the Caribbean islands, and the Portuguese started in Brazil, the English in Jamaica, and the Spanish in Venezuela. Indigo plantations also came up in many parts of Northern America. This will be your point number 3. The fourth point will be by the end of the 18th century. From here, then we'll continue it from the next line. Britain began to industrialize and its cotton production expanded dramatically, creating an enormous new demand for cloth dyes. This would be point number 4. And continuing from here, while the demand for indigo increased, its existing supplies from the West Indies and America collapsed for a variety of reasons. Between 1783 and 1789, the production of indigo in the world fell by half. This would be your fifth point, up till half. And this would complete your question. Why was there a demand for Indian indigo? For the next question, we'll move to the next page. On page number 32, the next question would be, what were the two systems of indigo cultivation? What were the two systems of indigo cultivation? What were the two systems of indigo cultivation? For this question, we'll start from here. There were two main systems of indigo cultivation, that is niche cultivation and Rayati cultivation. This would be your point number 1. Point number 2 would be continued from the same line. Within the system of niche cultivation, the planters produced indigo in the lands that he directly controlled. He either bought the land or rented it from other zamindars and produced indigo by directly employing the hired laborers. This would be point number 2. And for the third point, you would have to go to the next page. So the third point would be from here. Under the Rayati system, the planters forced the ryots to sign a contract and agreement, satta. At times, they pressurized the village headmen to sign the contract on behalf of the ryots. So in the first point, we mentioned about the two systems. In the second point, we mentioned what is niche cultivation. And in the third point, we mentioned what is the Rayati cultivation. That would conclude our answer for the question, what were the two main systems of indigo cultivation? Now we'll go back to the last page. There is another question, and the question will be, what was the problem with niche cultivation? What was the problem with niche cultivation? What was the problem with niche cultivation? We'll discuss this question here now. The first point is a little complex, so please pay attention. The first point will start from here. Indigo could be cultivated only on fertile lands, and these were already very densely populated. After this, we will go here and write the first line. So the planters found it difficult to expand the area under niche cultivation. So first we have to write the red line, and then we would have to write from here. So the planters found it difficult to expand the area under niche cultivation. पहले हमें रेड वाली लाइन लिखनी है, and then हमें ऊपर ग्रीन वाली लाइन लिखनी है. So the planters found it difficult to expand the area under niche cultivation. All this red and green, this will be your first point of this answer. So the point would be, indigo could be cultivated only on fertile land, and these were already densely populated, full stop. So the planters found it difficult to expand the area under niche cultivation. This was your first point. The second point would be in the next paragraph. A large plantation required a vast number of hands to operate, and labor was needed precisely at a time when peasants were usually busy with rice cultivation. So there was no labor. We will add another line here, and that would be so there was no labor available. So the second point would be a large plantation required a vast number of hands to operate, and labor was needed precisely at a time when peasants were usually busy with rice cultivation. So there was no labor available. The spelling of available has is incorrect. You can correct it. So this would be your point number 2. Then we move to point number 3. For point number 3, we'd start from here. Investing on purchase and maintenance of plough and was a big problem, nor could supplies be easily got from the peasants since the plough and bullocks were busy on the rice fields again exactly at the same time as indigo planters needed them. So this would be your point number 3, and that would conclude your answer as what were the problems with niche cultivation. What were the problems with niche cultivation? Now the next question is the question given at the back of your book. It is the question number 6. Why were riots reluctant to grow indigo? It is given at the back of your book. You can note from there. Question number 6. Why were the riots reluctant to grow indigo? The answer to this we will discuss here. Why were the riots reluctant to grow indigo? So the first point will be similar to the answers written in one of the points written in your previous question. Under the Rayati system, the planters forced the riots to sign a contract and agreement. At times, they pressurized the village headman to sign the contract on behalf of the riots. This would be point number 1. Then we will go to second point. Second point would be those who signed the contract got cash advances from the planters at low rate of interest to produce indigo. Point number 2. Then the point number 3. But the loan committed the riots to cultivate indigo on at least 25% of the area under his holding. This would be point number 3. For the next point, we will go to the next page. Peasants who were initially tempted by the loan soon realized how harsh the system was. The price they got for indigo they produced was very low, and the cycle of loans never ended. This would be your final point for this question. You can always pause the video to look at the points which have been highlighted. So this was question from your book exercise. The next question also we will discuss from the book exercise itself. Next question is the 7th question. What were the circumstances which led to the eventual collapse of indigo production in Bengal? What were the circumstances which led to the eventual collapse of indigo production in Bengal? Again, we'll go back to the heading, the Blue Rebellion and after. And from here, we'll start the answer. What led to the fall of indigo plantations in Bengal? So the first point will be from the beginning. In March 1859, thousands of riots in Bengal refused to grow indigo. This would be point number 1. Then we go to point number 2. Riots refused to pay rents to the planters and attacked indigo factories armed with swords, spears, bows, and arrows. Point number 2. Women turned up to fight with pots, pans, and kitchen implements. Point number 3. Those who worked for planters were socially boycotted. This would be point number 4. So these 4 points are on this page. For the next points, we will go to the next page. As the rebellion spread, intellectuals from Calcutta rushed to the indigo districts. They wrote of the misery of the riots, the tyranny of the planters, and the horrors of the indigo system. This would be your point number 5. Then there will be the 6th point. Worried by the rebellion, the government brought in the military to protect the planters from assault and set up the Indian Indigo Commission to inquire about the system of indigo production. This would be point number 6. And then at last we'll go to point number 7. The point number 7 would be the commission held the planters guilty and criticized them for coercive methods used with indigo cultivators. It declared that the indigo production was not profitable for the riots. The commission asked the riots to fulfill their existing contracts, but also told them that they could refuse to produce indigo in the future. This big point will be your 7th and the final point for this question. You should also write one more point, which is the first line of your next page. That would give your answer a better summary, a better ending. That would be after the revolt, indigo production collapsed in Bengal, but the planters now shifted their operations to Bihar. So that can be your 8th and final point. This question will be very, very important for you. And now we shall discuss the last question for you from this chapter, and that would be again at page number 35. The question would be, why did the indigo farmers decide to rebel in the year 1859? Why did the indigo farmers decide to rebel in 1859? This would be your question. Why did the indigo farmers decide to rebel in 1859? Why did they rebel in the year 1859? So this will be a very short question with only 4 points. We'll start from in 1859. The Indigo riots felt that they had the support of the local zamindars and the village headmen in their rebellion against the planters. Point number 1. Second point will be from here. The zamindars went around villages urging riots to resist the planters. The zamindars were unhappy with the increasing power of the planters and angry at being forced by the planters to give them land on long leases. That would be your point number 2. Third point would be the indigo plant peasants also imagined that the British government would support them in their struggles against the planters. This would be your point number 3. This would be your final point. And these 3 points will constitute your answer for the question, why did the indigo peasants decide to rebel in 1859? Why did the indigo farmers decide to rebel in 1859? The answer will consist of these 3 points. So these will be the question answers for your chapter number 3. Kindly complete them in your notebooks and we shall start the next chapter from the next class. Thank you.